The wedding dress hung in tatters from the barbed wire fence, white silk stained with mud and blood, swaying in the cold mountain wind like a ghost of broken dreams. Walter Morrison dropped his morning coffee cup, the ceramic shattering against the porch boards as he stared at the figure collapsed beneath his old oak tree. A woman lay motionless in the dirt, her once pristine gown now a canvas of desperation, torn sleeves revealing scratched arms and a face streaked with tears and forest debris. Thunder rolled across the Wyoming hills as Walter's weathered hands trembled, memories of another woman, another tragedy flooding back. His late wife Martha had worn a dress just like that on their wedding day 43 years ago, before the fire took everything. Now here was someone else's bride, broken and abandoned on his land like a discarded prayer. The woman stirred as raindrops began falling, her dark hair matted against pale cheeks. Walter approached slowly, his arthritic knees protesting each step down the porch stairs. At 74, he had learned that most troubles found their way to his doorstep eventually, but this was different. This was someone running from something terrible enough to flee barefoot through 10 miles of wilderness. "Miss?" His voice cracked like old leather. "You hurt?" Her eyes snapped open, wild and frightened, the green irises darting between Walter's face and the surrounding forest as if expecting pursuit. She scrambled backward against the tree trunk, leaves and twigs cascading from her ruined veil. "Please don't," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Don't send me back. I can't go back there." Walter raised his hands slowly, the way he would approach a spooked horse. In 40 years of ranching, he had learned to read fear, and this woman carried enough to fill his entire valley. Her left hand bore the pale mark where an engagement ring had been, the fingers still indented from whatever promise she had torn away. "Nobody's sending you anywhere," he said quietly. "What's your name?" She studied his face for a long moment, searching for deception in features carved by mountain weather and loss. "Rebecca," she finally answered. "Rebecca Chen." The Asian surname surprised him in this predominantly white corner of Wyoming, but Walter had learned long ago that pain spoke a universal language. He had seen that same desperate look in his own mirror after Martha died, when his son David blamed him for not saving her and walked away forever. "Well, Rebecca Chen, looks like you've had yourself quite a night." Walter gestured toward the approaching storm. "This rain's fixing to get serious, and you're already soaked through. Come inside where it's warm." Rebecca shook her head violently. "I don't have anywhere to go. No money, no phone, nothing. They'll be looking for me." "Who'll be looking?" Her hands clenched into fists around handfuls of her destroyed dress. "The Blackwood family. They think they own me now. Marcus's brother Cole, he said he'd find me wherever I ran, drag me back and make me finish what I started." Walter felt his jaw tighten. He had dealt with entitled ranch families before, men who believed money gave them the right to control other people's lives. The Blackwood name carried weight in 3 counties, but it carried no authority on his land. "Well, Miss Rebecca, this here's Morrison property, and I don't much care what the Blackwoods think they're owed." He extended his hand. "You can trust me or you can sit in that mud until hypothermia takes you. Your choice." Rebecca stared at his outstretched palm, calloused and honest, offering what no one else had in months, perhaps years. Choice. Real choice, without conditions or hidden prices. She took his hand. Inside Walter's modest kitchen, Rebecca sat wrapped in Martha's old quilts while he heated soup on the wood stove. The house felt frozen in time, family photographs yellowed on the mantelpiece, a woman's reading glasses still folded beside yesterday's newspaper. "You live alone?" Rebecca asked, watching him move carefully around the familiar space. 15 years now." Walter didn't elaborate, but his eyes drifted to Martha's empty chair. "Gets quiet, but quiet's not always bad." Rebecca nodded, understanding more than he realized. "My parents arranged my marriage to Marcus Blackwood. Said his family would pay off our debts, secure our future. I found out yesterday he bribed them extra to guarantee I'd say yes. When I confronted them, they said I was being ungrateful, that love was a luxury we couldn't afford." Walter set a steaming bowl before her, his movements deliberate and kind. Love ain't luxury, miss. It's necessity. Anyone who tells you different is trying to sell you something. Outside, the storm intensified, rain lashing against windows like angry fists. Rebecca pulled the quilts tighter, feeling safe for the first time in months. But in the distance, barely audible above the thunder, came the low rumble of truck engines climbing the mountain road. Cole Blackwood was coming. The headlights cut through the storm like twin searchlights, illuminating the rain-soaked driveway as two black pickup trucks ground to a halt outside Walter's porch. Rebecca's soup bowl clattered against the table as she recognized the Blackwood family crest emblazoned on the door panels, a golden bull's head that had haunted her nightmares for weeks. "Get away from the windows," Walter commanded, his voice suddenly sharp with authority. He moved to an old gun cabinet, retrieving a weathered shotgun with practiced efficiency. "This is still my land, and I don't take kindly to uninvited guests." Car doors slammed through the thunder as heavy boots stomped across the wooden porch boards. Rebecca pressed herself against the kitchen wall, Martha's quilts falling around her feet as terror paralyzed her limbs. Through the rain-streaked glass, she could see Cole Blackwood's massive silhouette, flanked by two ranch hands whose reputations preceded them through every valley in Wyoming. "Morrison." Cole's voice boomed above the storm. "We know she's in there. Send out my brother's bride, and we'll leave peaceful-like." Walter checked his shotgun's chambers with deliberate slowness, each click echoing through the quiet kitchen like a countdown. At 74, his hands remained steady as granite, muscle memory from decades of protecting what mattered most. "Private property." Walter shouted back through the door. "State your business or get off my land." Cole's laughter carried a cruel edge that made Rebecca's stomach clench. "Business? Hell, old man, I'm here for stolen goods. That Chinese girl ran off with Blackwood property, and we're taking her back where she belongs." The racial slur hit Rebecca like a physical blow, confirming everything she had feared about the family she nearly married into. Walter's jaw tightened visibly, his weathered face darkening with controlled rage. "Rebecca," he whispered without turning around. "There's a back door through the pantry. Take my truck keys from the hook and drive down to Sheriff Martinez in town. Tell him what's happening here." Rebecca shook her head frantically. "I won't leave you alone with them. Cole Blackwood has killed men for less than this. And I've buried men for more," Walter replied quietly, checking the back door's locks. "I've been protecting this land since before Cole was born. But you don't deserve to suffer for my stubbornness." Outside, Cole's patience evaporated like steam in the cold mountain air. "You've got 30 seconds, Morrison. After that, we're coming in anyway, and things get complicated for everyone." Rebecca felt something shift inside her chest, a spark of defiance that had been smothered under months of fear and family pressure. She thought of her parents, counting Blackwood money while their daughter disappeared into servitude. She thought of Marcus, drunk and violent during their engagement dinner. She thought of Cole, promising to hunt her down like an animal. "No," she said firmly, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "I'm done running." Walter turned to study her face, seeing something there that reminded him of Martha during her bravest moments. "Miss Rebecca, these aren't reasonable men. They'll hurt you just to prove a point. Then they'll have to hurt both of us," Rebecca declared, moving to stand beside him at the window. "Because I'm not going back to that life. Not today, not ever." Heavy footsteps circled the house as Cole positioned his men at strategic points. Through the storm, Rebecca could hear them testing doors and windows, probing for weakness like predators stalking wounded prey. "All right, Morrison." Cole's voice came from directly outside the front door now. "Time's up. We're coming in." The first kick splintered the door frame, sending splinters of wood flying across Walter's entryway. The second kick tore the door completely off its hinges, revealing Cole Blackwood's hulking frame silhouetted against the storm. At 6'5" and 300 pounds, he filled the doorway like a mountain of malice, his eyes scanning the room until they locked onto Rebecca's terrified face. "There's my runaway bride," Cole sneered, water dripping from his black cowboy hat. "You've caused us considerable trouble, honey. Marcus is mighty upset about being left at the altar." Walter raised his shotgun with steady hands. "This is your only warning, Blackwood. Turn around and walk away." Cole's grin revealed teeth like yellow tombstones. "That antique won't stop all three of us, old man. And when we're done with you, little Rebecca here learns what happens to girls who embarrass the Blackwood family." But as Cole stepped across the threshold, Rebecca Chin made a decision that would change everything. Instead of cowering behind Walter like a helpless victim, she stepped forward into the light, her chin raised with quiet dignity. "I have something to say first," she announced, her voice carrying across the storm-torn night like a prayer transformed into steel. Rebecca's words hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. Cole Blackwood paused mid-step, his predatory grin faltering as something unexpected flickered in the young woman's eyes. She no longer looked like the terrified bride who had fled through the forest, but like someone who had found her backbone in the darkness. "Say your piece quick, girl," Cole growled, rain dripping from his massive frame onto Walter's wooden floors. "Then we're settling this the hard way." Rebecca stepped further into the lamplight, Martha's quilts forgotten on the floor behind her. Her torn wedding dress hung in tatters, but she wore it now like armor forged from defiance rather than defeat. "I recorded everything," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the storm's chaos. "Every conversation, every threat, every illegal deal the Blackwood family made with my parents. It's all saved on a cloud server that uploads automatically to the FBI if I don't check in every 24 hours. Cole's face darkened like thunder clouds gathering strength. "You're lying." Rebecca pulled a small recording device from beneath her dress's torn bodice, holding it up where the dim light caught its silver surface. "Marcus bragged about bribing judges, intimidating witnesses, covering up that hit-and-run accident your cousin caused last year. He thought I was too scared and stupid to do anything about it." Walter felt his breath catch as pieces of a larger puzzle began falling into place. The Blackwood family's stranglehold on local law enforcement, the mysterious deaths of ranchers who opposed their land grabs, the silence that followed anyone brave enough to speak against them. "You recorded us?" Cole's voice rose to a roar that shook the windows. "You little—" "I recorded a family confessing to federal crimes," Rebecca interrupted, surprising everyone including herself with her steel-spine courage. "Tax evasion, witness intimidation, conspiracy, racketeering. The kind of charges that carry 20 to life sentences." One of Cole's ranch hands shifted nervously behind him, suddenly understanding that this was no longer about retrieving a runaway bride. This was about survival. "Boss, maybe we should." "Shut up." Cole snarled, his massive hands clenching into fists. "She's bluffing. Some scared little girl doesn't have the guts to take on the Blackwood name." But Walter saw the truth in Rebecca's posture, the way her shoulders had straightened with purpose rather than crumbled under pressure. She had spent months gathering evidence while everyone assumed she was simply a frightened victim preparing for an unwanted marriage. "The recordings are already in FBI possession," Rebecca continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Agent Sarah Martinez received copies yesterday morning, along with financial records I photographed during family dinners. They're building a RICO case against your entire organization." Cole's face went white beneath his weather tan. Agent Martinez was Sheriff Martinez's daughter, transferred to the Denver field office specifically to investigate organized crime in rural Wyoming. The Blackwood family had spent years insulating themselves from federal oversight, but Rebecca had handed the FBI everything they needed on a silver platter. "You have no idea what you've done," Cole whispered, his earlier bluster replaced by cold calculation. "The Blackwood family has roots deeper than government bureaucracy. We've buried federal agents before." Walter stepped forward, shotgun still trained on Cole's center mass. And that right there just gave Miss Rebecca another charge to add to her collection. Threatening a federal witness, conspiracy to murder law enforcement officers. "You boys just keep digging your graves deeper." Rebecca felt a strange sense of liberation washing over her like cleansing rain. For months, she had felt powerless, trapped between her family's financial desperation and the Blackwood family's criminal empire. But documenting their crimes had given her something more valuable than money or safety: the truth. "The only reason I'm telling you this," Rebecca said, meeting Cole's furious glare without flinching, "is so you understand that hurting Walter or me won't stop what's coming. The evidence exists whether we do or not." Cole's breathing had become labored, his massive chest rising and falling like a cornered bull preparing to charge. Behind him, his ranch hands exchanged worried glances, suddenly aware that their loyalty to the Blackwood family might cost them decades in federal prison. "This isn't over," Cole finally said, his voice dripping with promised violence. "Recording or no recording, you can't hide forever. And when we find you again..." "You won't," Walter interrupted quietly. "Because tomorrow morning, Miss Rebecca and I are driving to Denver together. She's going into federal protection, and I'm testifying about everything I've witnessed over the past 40 years. Rebecca turned to stare at Walter in amazement. She hadn't asked him to sacrifice his quiet life for her cause, but his weathered face showed the same determination that had carried him through decades of mountain winters and personal loss. Thunder crashed overhead as Cole Blackwood realized that his family's empire was crumbling around him, brought down by a woman they had underestimated and an old rancher who had finally found something worth fighting for again. 6 months later, Rebecca Chin stood on Walter's front porch watching the sunrise paint the Wyoming mountains in shades of gold and crimson. The FBI raid on Blackwood properties had made national news, with Cole and Marcus facing federal racketeering charges that would keep them in prison for decades. But more importantly, Rebecca had discovered something she never expected to find in the ashes of her broken engagement: a home. Walter emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 steaming coffee mugs, his movements more confident than they had been since Martha's death. The old rancher had testified before a federal grand jury, his 40 years of witness corruption providing the final pieces needed to dismantle the Blackwood criminal enterprise. More significantly, his willingness to protect Rebecca had awakened something in him that had slept too long. "The new guests arrive this afternoon," Rebecca announced, checking her tablet where their mountain retreat bookings continued growing. Her idea to transform Walter's struggling ranch into a therapeutic riding center for trauma survivors had exceeded every expectation, drawing visitors from across the country seeking healing in the mountain wilderness. Walter nodded, sipping his coffee while surveying the improvements Rebecca had orchestrated. New fencing enclosed expanded pastures where rescued horses grazed peacefully. A renovated barn housed their therapeutic riding program, while guest cabins dotted the hillside like hopes taking physical form. "Never thought this old place would see so much life again," Walter admitted, his weathered face softer now than it had been in years. "Martha would have loved watching you work your magic here." Rebecca smiled, remembering how terrified she had been that storm-torn night when everything seemed hopeless. The woman who had fled through the forest in a torn wedding dress barely resembled the confident entrepreneur who now managed their thriving business. "I got a letter yesterday," Walter said quietly, producing an envelope from his shirt pocket. "From David." Rebecca's breath caught. Walter's estranged son had cut contact 15 years earlier, blaming his father for failing to save Martha from the fire that consumed their original home. Walter had carried that guilt like a stone in his chest ever since. "What did he say?" Walter's hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the handwritten pages. He saw the news coverage about the Blackwood trial. "Read about what we've been doing here, helping people heal from trauma. Says he realizes now that some tragedies are bigger than blame." Rebecca felt tears forming as Walter continued reading his son's words of reconciliation and respect. David had written about his own struggles with alcoholism and failed relationships, admitting that anger had poisoned his life while his father quietly rebuilt purpose from ashes. "He wants to visit next month," Walter said, his voice thick with emotion. "Bring his daughter I've never met. Says it's time to stop running from family." Rebecca reached over to squeeze Walter's weathered hand, understanding how healing could emerge from the most broken places. Her own parents had eventually contacted her through FBI intermediaries, apologizing for their role in the arranged marriage and asking for forgiveness they didn't deserve but would receive anyway. "The trauma survivors who come here see something special in you," Rebecca told Walter. "They see someone who understands that survival isn't about avoiding pain, but about choosing what grows from it." Walter nodded, watching their therapeutic horses moving peacefully through morning mist. veterans with PTSD, abuse survivors, grieving families, all found something healing in the mountain quiet and honest work with animals who had overcome their own traumas. What about you? Walter asked. Any regrets about the life you left behind? Rebecca considered the question seriously. She thought about the designer wedding dress that had once symbolized imprisonment, now stored in their barn as a reminder of courage found in desperate moments. She thought about Marcus Blackwood, serving 25 years for racketeering. She thought about her parents, slowly rebuilding trust through honest conversations and respect for her choices. My only regret, Rebecca said finally, is that it took so long to realize that freedom isn't about escaping from something. It's about running toward who you're meant to become. As if summoned by her words, a pickup truck appeared on the mountain road, carrying their first guests of the day. Another broken soul seeking healing in the wilderness, another opportunity to prove that even the darkest storms eventually pass. Walter Morrison and Rebecca Chen had learned that sometimes the most beautiful rescues happen when two lost people choose to save each other. Thank you for watching this incredible journey of courage and redemption. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories that prove hope can bloom in the darkest places. What would you do if you had to choose between security and freedom? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Your support helps us bring these powerful human stories to life. See you in the next video.